We are almost at 3,000 subscribers, so close. It feels like only yesterday we hit 2K over here. It's going by so fast, and you're all a part of it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because if you don't,
I will find you.
Just kidding. Hit the like button if you're excited for Season 2 of Fortnite's second chapter, and let's draw this adorable little kitty cat. Well, maybe not adorable, it's actually a bit unsettling. On that note, let's go. So we're going to start the way we usually do, with a circle for the head. We're going to make this quite small because our character's body is quite big. So if we make their head small, it exaggerates how big the body is. And we're going to start out by basically building up some really basic shapes. I'm saying basic a lot, but I mean it when I say it. Lots of basic shapes. And if at any point of this video you feel like I'm going too quickly, feel free to pause it or rewind it or whatever you want. You're the one with the remote, you can basically do whatever you want. But basically at this point, I'm just going to kind of draw in the basic shapes, basic, of our character here, and then we'll add all the details on top. So as you can see, I've just drawn a line of symmetry down where I want the very middle of the front of his torso to be, and I've drawn it down to about this height here. This height, for reference, is roughly twice the height of the head. If you look at how tall your head is, then you want to basically draw that about twice as high as the head. Just underneath this, we're going to draw another line underneath because that's where the belt's going to go. And then a small V shape here for where the legs separate. And then either side of that, we're going to draw a rough line down for where we want the middle of each leg to be. This leg is going to be a little bit longer than this one. This one is a little bit in the background, and this one's a little bit in the foreground. So bring this one down a bit further and draw a line across where you want the ankle to be. And for reference, the legs, the front leg, if you keep in mind how tall your head is here, 1, 2, 3, roughly 3.5 heads for each, for the front leg, and about 3 heads for the back leg. So if you want to get your proportions right, use the head as a way of balancing that out. So we'll etch in a quick shape for the feet here. Just going to kind of follow the shape in the original picture a little bit there, maybe make it a little bit more basic so it's a little easier to draw. I say easier to draw. Shoes are not always that easy to draw, but try and get this shape down. You want to get these subtle curves in where it goes in a little bit here, and it sticks out a bit at the toe there. It swings underneath for the sole, right along the bottom there, and we've got a little bit for the inside of the foot there. And as for the other shoe, it just kind of bumps out where the toe is. We've got this bridge that comes down the front of the foot, and the heel is pretty much straight going back up into the ankle. So right now we do just have some basic shapes in place, and all we have to do now is add in the arms. So the arms are going to be at this very difficult flexing pose. So either side of these little bits here at the side of each side of the chest, there and there, we're just going to draw in some lines coming out. And the elbows, I'm just going to circle the elbows, also going to circle the knees just so it's a little bit easier to measure out our drawing here. And then at the end of each of these arms, I'm just going to draw very lightly a small square at the end to show that there's going to be fists there. So we'll just start by drawing the head. It's a nice warm-up exercise because it's very easy on this character. There's a couple of very small ears either side of the head here. They don't go up very high and they're fairly far apart. And then each side of the head has a little bit of, I guess, a tuft of fur sticking out at each side. And we end up with this very cat-like shape straight away. Got 2 little ears for extra adorableness, which is very much in contrast with the rest of the character's appearance. And then these little bits of the cheeks sticking out. Then we can just draw a little mouth, and it basically just looks like a soft W or a 3 on its side, just there in the middle. And then right above that, we can draw in each eye. And the eyes are a little bit taller than they are wide. So you end up with this very cute kind of Hello Kitty classic style of drawing eyes. They're just a little bit tall, but they're quite far down the face. If you look carefully, they're actually below the midway point of our original circle. If I leave that line there, he looks very stern, so we're not going to leave that line there. And then all you have to do is just bring this down for the neck either side, just underneath where those cheeks end. And our head, for this point, is pretty much done, so we can jump into all the lovely difficult parts of drawing this character's physique. So I think a good place to start would be the torso, and we'll work outward from there. So either side of this line of symmetry, we're going to draw up a pectoral muscle, like this. And that one just matches up to where we drew that original guideline there. And now for the abs. This guy's completely jacked. He's got like a full six-pack going on. So we're going to draw a couple of small lines here for where they begin to separate. And then we're going to draw in that six-pack. So 1, 2, and 3, and that last one just kind of joins up with the belt there. It just kind of goes down to a spot where we can't see. And then another 3 on this side. 1, 2, 3. So this is basically a really basic crash course in how to draw muscles. I'll do a much more detailed tutorial on how to draw muscles in the future if you guys want it. They are pretty difficult to get right. This is a very cartoony and rather unrealistic way of drawing muscles, but the long and short of getting them to look more or less right is just lots of subtle curves on the outside of the body. Don't draw the abs in too hard. You want to make them nice and soft and subtle, but for the outside of the body, yeah, you want to basically have it a bit wider at the chest and a bit more narrow at the torso, if you can just see what I've done there. So now we'll draw in a little bit for the belt, little buckle here, that typical kind of Fortnite buckle. They always have this kind of shape. I guess maybe it's practical or something. And we'll add some little belt loops, just some straight lines that go down like that. We'll have 2 on this side, and then we need to draw the holster for the gun. Now the holster is a lot of straight lines, so maybe some of you will enjoy this. Some people certainly prefer to draw objects because they're full of straight lines or very, very solid edges. We're just going to draw a little rectangle here with very slanted tops and bottoms like that, and then we'll come away as we draw basically what looks like a very crude gun shape as we come away from the torso there. There's a small emblem on this that looks like, I guess it looks like a paw print. I'm not really sure how else to describe that. And then we've got the very, very back of the gun sticking out here. So we're just basically drawing some 3D shapes here, just etching in a little kind of, almost like a cube sitting right there on the top of that holster. And there's just a bit of detail here on top of the gun. There's also a little bit of detail here sticking out, just a small notch, little hammer for the gun. And then a small notch here. And then for the handle starts fairly slender and comes out quite wide, like that. So it's more narrow there than it is there. It's actually quite thick at the end. Now we'll just draw some lines down that to complete the detail. And our gun sketch, at least, is done. There's no need to be more complex than that. We are sticking to a cartoony style, so we don't have to worry about adding too much crazy stuff in the way of details. We'll add a small pattern down here just towards the crotch area for a fly. And now for the legs. So the legs are actually not crazy muscular. They're kind of normal shaped. If you look at the Agent Peely, sorry, if I can actually write, that looks like really. But Agent Peely drawing that I did just the previous video, if you go back and watch that, the legs pretty much look the same. So we're going to come down from the belt with a slight outwards curve as we approach the knee, and then bump the knee out a tiny, tiny bit. You see how subtle that is? Well, that subtlety can have all the difference when it comes to making a drawing. Don't do anything too over the top when it comes to drawing musculature accurately. But then again, it is a cartoon, and cartoons usually benefit from making things quite exaggerated. So if you really want, you could draw this calf muscle out here and then bring it in. You see how exaggerated and crazy that looks? And that's great in cartoons. For this particular Fortnite skin, I'm going to stick to the anatomy in the original reference picture just because I feel like it works here. So a bit sticking out for the calf there, and it comes back in. Notice how narrow it gets as we approach the ankle. The ankle is always very narrow on any drawing you'll ever see, and that's a really hard and fast rule. Whether it's realistic or a cartoon, ankles are pretty much always very narrow, and the calf and the thigh and the calf there, usually the bits that stick out the most. So I'll just demonstrate that again on this. If we're just drawing the back of the leg now, comes in towards the knee, but then it flicks out a bit for the calf, and again it curves in towards the ankle. We're just going to add a little cuff at the bottom of that because he's wearing denim jeans, and I don't know how practical denim jeans are in a battlefield, in a battle arena like Fortnite's, but an awful lot of them are wearing jeans, so he's not exactly the first one to do that. So the boots, we're going to ever so slightly simplify the boots here by drawing a rectangle down the front of each of the boots, but don't worry, just because we're simplifying them doesn't mean they're not going to look right. They're certainly going to look right. And then either side of that rectangle, we're going to draw 4 very small circles like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they don't have to be perfect. This is just a sketch at this point. So just drawing in those shapes as they look, and then you can go over and do all the fancy details you want. And then basically, we're going to play a game of dot to dot. So you want to match these up. Just draw laces that go across that rectangle in the middle and match those circles up. We can see the circles kind of go off the edge here. That's the front of the foot, so these lines, these laces, are going to be curving over the front of the foot like that, if you can visualize that. Now we'll add a sole to each shoe, big thick rubbery sole, because they are boots after all. Boots do have very, very thick soles. Make sure you tuck it in for the ball of the foot there, but keep it nice and thick for the front and the back of the boot. And then we'll just add a small bit here for the top of each boot and round off that heel a little bit so it actually looks like a shoe rather than a flat object. I brought mine in a bit too far, so I'm just going to redo that. There we go, giving that heel just a slight curve at the back, something very, very subtle. Play around with your eraser and your pencil until you get it right. I'm just going to add a little bit of shape to each side of the boot there. If you want to, you can add a bit of detail to the boot by drawing in a line that comes in from the top and matches up there. Okay, just like in the original reference picture, we've got this stitching of leather going on there. So now that the shoes are done, we can start tackling the really, really difficult part of this drawing, which is the arms. You guessed it, the arms. The arms are not easy, but follow this tutorial as slowly as you need to, and it might take you a few tries, but don't worry if it does, because trust me, I've been drawing for years and years and years, and it still takes me ages to get this kind of thing right, and I don't always get it right first time. So we're going to basically break this down into 3 circles and work from there. So to start, very, very gently with your pencil, draw what looks like a circle just kind of sticking out. So this part of the circle doesn't get drawn, but we've got this kind of lump sticking out there, and that's the shoulder. And make sure you do it on this side as well, ever so slightly lower than that side of the arm. That arm rather. It is a different arm. And then another circle overlapping, and this one just kind of sits there, and that dictates the width of the arm, or the width of the bicep and the tricep. Bicep is this, tricep is that. A little bit of an anatomy lesson for you while we go here. So you just want to keep that circle a little bit bigger than the original one that we drew for the shoulder, and that one will tell us exactly how wide our arm's going to be. We're actually not going to go past that in terms of how low down or how high up that part of the arm goes. And a final circle doesn't overlap. This one does not overlap with this circle. It does not overlap. It just touches at the end there. Okay? And that is the forearm muscle. And what we're going to do is basically just go around these as we draw the shape of our arm. So keep the wrist very, very thin, just like the ankle, and bring it out around the circle that you drew for the forearm on each side, like that. And then just kind of bring it in a little bit, draw a point out for the elbow, and then we're going to guide it underneath that tricep bit. Remember that guideline we drew for that circle there, and then just tuck it in towards the torso there, and we'll finish off that detail in a minute. I just want to get the shape of this arm right. So let me just make mine a little bit clearer here. So kind of rounded here for the middle of the forearm, and then this, we're going to fold this in just like that. It's not an easy detail, but basically look at the hard line that I'm drawing. I'm drawing basically the top half of this circle and then the top bit of this circle as it matches in to the trapeze muscles going on here either side of the neck, just there. Okay, and you can bring this in to match up with the top of that pectoral muscle that we drew earlier, and another line here that fades off into the bicep. And now for this arm as well. So we're going to do the same again. I'm actually going to start in the same place to make it less confusing. So thin at the wrist, bring it out just slightly for the forearm, draw a point for the elbow, and then guide this line underneath and tuck it into the torso like that. And then for this one, again, we're going to just go alongside that the outside of that circle. Big line over there for the bicep. Very kind of like he's got a tennis ball hidden in his arm. And then we're just going to bridge that over there into the top of that muscle and bring this into the neck. Now it's okay if you've overdone it because it is a cartoon character, and if the muscles look ridiculously big, don't worry about it. If anything, it might work quite well with him being a cartoon. He's not a real person, so you don't have to worry about making that perfectly accurate. But if you want, I will do a tutorial in the future on how to draw better musculature and more realistic musculature. This is just really kind of quick and easy cartoon style to draw muscles. So they're not completely accurate, but they're pretty good for a cartoon. We'll just quickly add in the tail before I forget here. It's very thin and wispy on this character, but it's a bit thicker at the end than it is along the actual length of the tail. And finally, the fists. Now the fists are another challenging part of this drawing. We're going to go through it together, so we'll do them one by one. I'm going to start with this one. So what I like to do is with this square that I've drawn, I like to plan out where each of the fingers is going to go. So I like to start with the thumb. The thumb's just going to be a notch sticking out the side here. And now we need 4 fingers. And I'm just going to draw some small rectangles to plan where I want those to be. And they're not all going to be perfectly arranged. They're going to go dancing up and down a little bit like that. So we get this kind of natural curve to it, if you can see that kind of shape going on there. And then we can start drawing the rest of the fingers. So we're not going to see much of these fingers over here, but this little finger we're going to see plenty of. So we can draw, see that little bit there poking back towards the palm? That's the very, very tip of the little finger. And then up here, this comes around to a knuckle, and we can just basically curve this around to the wrist and finish that shape off there. If you feel it goes off a little too far, you can always use your eraser and bring those lines in a bit more together and make it look a bit more realistic. And that's very much a thing in art. You'll draw one part and then you'll draw another one and you'll realize, oh, that doesn't quite join up. That's what your eraser's for. You can erase as much as you want and start bits again until it looks about right. Just going to draw this curve in for the palm here and another line here just to show that the palm is stressed and closed. And it's best if we have these lines match up a bit better, because that thumb is going to be touching the very, very bottoms of those fingers that we're not really going to see very well because the thumb is kind of resting on them. Okay, so this over here, this fist is basically more of the same. So it's just a bit more practice in the same thing. We're going to draw a notch over here for the thumb. And what comes next? Yeah, you got it. Okay, so it's going to be a little rectangle here, one there, and one there. And then we'll start with the little finger. We'll start with the end of that little finger and then bring that back towards the palm. We're not going to see the tops of those fingers very well from this perspective. And then we can draw a curve here, matching that thumb up to that wrist there. And we can basically draw that up to the knuckle. Again, if you feel it comes out a bit too far, you can always erase and bring it out just like I did there because I didn't feel it looked quite right. So another line for the palm here. Okay, and our sketch at this point, if I just close that off there, our sketch at this point is pretty much done. I don't know if you want to just add a little line here just to show how the muscles join up a little bit better, but other than that, we're done. So grab your Sharpie and go over all the lines you want to keep. You don't want to keep these guidelines, for instance, we're actually done with those. And, well, maybe you'll need a bit of this down the middle, but not too much. Don't overdo that line between the pectoral muscles. But for the most part, our sketch is done. So grab your Sharpie, go over the lines you want to keep. I'm going to do the same, so I'll see you in just a moment. Next time you're going to flex on your foes after a victory royale, why not draw the imposing Meowscles instead? Really can't get over that name. Did the name come first or the character design? I guess we'll never know. Before I go, ensure you join the Discord channel. It's a great place to meet other budding artists, talk to me, share your artwork, post memes, all that good stuff. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching and hit the like button and subscribe if you didn't already. Until next time.